Hi, hello, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk to some real people about some real things, living real lives, doing real stuff. This is the Working Perspectives Podcast. I'm Matt Lavelle, accompanied by party boy Pete McCormick, and our special guest today is the incredible, the vivacious, the amazing Bonnie McCormick. Party boy Pete, I know we've been ready for this one for a long time. How you feeling, pal? You ready to do this?
Matrick, I've been waiting 36 years for this podcast.
Me too, my man. Me too. All right. Well, you can find all our podcasts and all our content on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast and hang out with us on the Twitter or the TikTok at Working P Pod if you'd like to be a guest on the show. And if you've ever thought, hey, I'd be good on a podcast, or I could do a podcast, or I should do a podcast, let us know because we'll have you on. You just have to email us at workperspectives@gmail.com. All right, let's get this thing started. Let's go.
It's our objective to be effective by voicing societies. Working perspective, exploring your day and how you get paid. Launching a new episode every Tuesday. Your day can transform while we inform with new episodes available on every platform. So check out our vibe and how we get live. Then do us a solid. Share and subscribe. Would you share it? Would you share it? Would you share it? Working perspectives.
All right, party boy. Let me tell you a little something. So, as everyone knows, the listeners, October 2nd is the big day, the big showdown between me and Tom Lavelle, aka Asshole, aka Captain Jerkbeard, and I will be winning the rights back to my show in a game of Mario Kart, and then we'll be free, Pete. We'll finally be free.
Hell yeah, Matt.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So that's enough to say about that. We're kind of sick of talking about it and sick of having to live under the tyrannical
Sick
rule
of talking about it, sick of hearing about him, sick of seeing him, Matt.
Yeah, sick of smelling him too, because he stinks.
He stinks. I can smell him all the way from here.
Yeah, stink. So I really want to talk about our guest today, Pete. So I don't know if you've ever met her before, but she's a lovely lady, Miss Bonnie McCormick. Have you had the pleasure?
You know, once, 36 years ago, the evening of Super Bowl Sunday, January 20th, 1985, I had the pleasure of being introduced.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you guys are old friends. That's great.
Old friends. Yeah.
Awesome. For those who haven't picked up now, Bonnie McCormick is Mrs. McCormick, which is Pete's mom. And she is just the best and super great and super happy that she wanted to be on the show. And she was willing to, come on and share her story with us. And I can't wait to get into it because it's a great one. But I do have a little story I want to tell.
Oh, let's hear it, Matt.
Yeah. So the McCormicks as a family have always been really great to me. There was a time in my life where I was kind of bouncing around, and I remember I stayed at your house like 5 days straight, and your mom just asked, was like, okay, does Matt live here now? And I was like, oh, she didn't say throw me out. That's the best. She was like, okay, Matt can stay, but she's always been, as a family, they're very welcoming, very warming, and you're just the best people, as everyone who listens to the show knows, right? So couple months ago, as everyone knows, I'm married, unbelievably, and I have a child, remarkably. And several months ago, my child was sick, and I'm a new parent, first time. So me and my wife were trying to figure this out, and everything we were doing wasn't working, and we were freaking out. And it was
Scary stuff.
It's very scary, especially because it's like, it is tough because you don't know what you're doing and everything you're trying seems to be making things worse. And people are telling you all these witch doctor remedies and not all of them work. Sometimes they do, but sometimes you're like, Jesus Christ. But in my mind, I was like, we need to talk to a professional. And if anything, really, my wife needed to because she was losing it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I hit up the party boy Pete. I was like, hey, party boy, can you slide me your mom's digits? And you were like, yeah, sure. No problem. No questions asked. Just threw me the phone number. And Mrs. McCormick, I was able to call her and talk to her, and I'm telling you, dude, lifesaver, right? So people will find out later, but Pete's mom was a nurse for 30 years, right? And
Oh yeah.
and
I think about 25 years. Yeah.
okay. So sorry, just 25. Okay. No.
We're all about accuracy on the Working Perspectives podcast.
You're right. No nuance on this show. So, no, you're right. So 25 years she was a nurse at, she worked at some major children's hospitals and, other places. We'll get into more of it, but she worked at, and she would work at CHOP, which is the #1 children's hospital in the nation, right? In the world, #1 children's hospital in the world. And she would work there for years and we're going to find out in multiple facets and doing everything. But when you have a question as a first-time parent, there really was no better person to talk to. She knew exactly what was going on. She really kind of talked us off the ledge of like freaking out and going nuts, and really like brought like a solace to me and my wife. And like, honestly, like afterwards, my wife was like so happy and crying, like couldn't thank her enough. And it was just like, to do that at the drop of a hat. Because honestly, I think she would do it because, we're friends and obviously, and like she knows me and everything like that. But I think in my mind that it doesn't matter who it is, because she would do it because it would be what was best for the child. Right.
Yeah, man, I have a little bit of a rare perspective because I know my mom before she was a nurse and actually became a nurse. And on our block, there was another nurse, and it was like you were the go-to mom for any questions. And then my mom became that mom, like as she became a nurse. So
yeah.
That's the Northeast. It's a community up there. It
takes a village, man. It takes a village. That's for damn sure. And dude, you're not wrong. I mean, and that's, dude, and that's like kind of like, I consider that an honor. Where it's like people think they have their shit together until they meet someone who actually knows what the hell they're talking about, right? But yeah.
Well, don't worry. Whenever the pipes broke, she called up the plumber. She's like, "I gave you a kid advice. You make sure you give me goddamn plumbing advice."
That's how, dude. That's some old world stuff, and that's how it should be. You know what I mean? Like you need your tooth fixed. Be like, look, remember when your kid had a sprained knee? Who'd you call? All right, I got this cavity. It's freaking killing me. But no, that's some old world stuff, the way it works. But I think even your mom is such a great lady that she would do that no matter what, and it's just because it was what's best for the kid, Yeah. So I'm so happy she decided to come on. So happy that she listened to the show and she's a fan of the show, and that she lets her son, be a superstar on this show. And I can't thank her enough for coming on. And I'm really excited to get into her story and everything like that. But real quick, Ms. McCormick, thank you for coming on. And I just would like to ask, have you seen the movie Bohemian Rhapsody? And if yes, what do you think of that piece of shit movie?
That's the one that's about Queen, the head singer.
Absolutely.
That was a good movie.
Oh,
yes, it was. Yes, it was.
A good movie. Yes. Yes.
I knew this one was coming.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Why? Did you guys have a discussion beforehand?
Actually, no. At least I knew what it was.
Yeah.
No,
we both know who the greatest singer of all time is. The greatest live performance of all time was Live 8 in 1985 in Wembley Stadium, UK.
Yeah, and Remy Malik. That's him. Was that the guy singing?
Look, he had the teeth. He had the teeth.
He did. All right.
Yeah.
He had a nice set of choppers there. I will say that. So, all right. Well, very good. Well, Miss McCormick, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you, Matt?
I'm doing great. Once, and thanks again for all the help you gave to me and my wife when our daughter was sick. Can't thank you enough. And that's a true story for all the people listening. That's how good of a person we have on the show. So me and Pete really have to mind our P's and the Q's today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was my pleasure, and I'm just glad it kind of helped you and your wife get comfortable, because it's a very scary thing when you're new parents and you don't know. And there's some docs that are very great, with new parents and will explain things. Others do not. And so, anytime. Absolutely.
Well,
and if I need anything in a podcast, I'll know who to call.
Yes. If you need anything, you just let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Of course.
And Peter, it was nice meeting you 36 years ago on Super Bowl
That's right.
Sunday. Labor started half an hour before kickoff and ended a half an hour after the end of the game. So
my father still hasn't talked to me.
Yeah. It was Miami and
The Niners. Yep, it was Marino versus Montana.
Oh wow, man. Well,
yeah.
I mean,
Imagine stopping your dad from watching Rodgers versus Brady.
Yeah,
he did put a tape in the VCR before we left for the hospital, and I told him he could watch, but he was afraid. Pregnant. Well, women in labor are not the most pleasant.
Right. Yeah. We know that was an empty promise right there.
Man, I can give you some stories about my mom being scary outside of labor.
That's called menopause, but we won't go there.
No, come on. No, I don't believe that. I think you're from I remember, I think you told me the story one time of like the kids were the kids. I mean, Pete and Jimmy were like acting up in their room one time. And then Mr. McCormick went in there and he was like, you kids need to cut this crap out. Like, I'm done with this. You're going to get it. And Jimmy was like, well, you're not the boss. Mom's the boss.
Oh, yeah. Peter's like, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I'll be good. I'll be good. And Jimmy's like, you're not the boss. What did you say? You're not the boss. Mommy's the boss. Well, he just had to walk away. And I said, well, I taught him right.
Listen, old man, there's a hierarchy in this household and you're not at the top. No.
Yeah. He's like, look, I'm here to speak to the manager. Okay. Yeah.
Not the night manager, not the shift manager, the store manager.
Yeah. Yeah. Ours was my family was the opposite. You would deal with your mom, but if she had to call my dad, it was like, oh shit. Like you might as well head for the hills because it's over, but no, that's great. So all right, well, like I said, we have a lot of really good stuff to get into and a lot of stuff to talk about and really, really great stuff and super excited for this. So I want to start with we're born and raised. So Mrs. McCormick here was born and raised in the city of brotherly love, the fighting city of Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
And you were the oldest of 6 kids. And when you were coming up, it was kind of you bounced around a little bit. You lived in like a bunch of different parts of Kensington, and like you're in like Frankfurt, the greater Northeast area, Cherry Hill a little bit. And I wanted to ask about this because my mom grew up in Kensington as well, right? And she would say back then, Kensington now, I think everyone knows, not the best place to raise a family, but back then it was like a lot of like blue collar working. There was factories you would go to every day, and it was kind of like that. What was your experience growing up in Kensington?
Oh, I agree, because you felt safe walking around.
Yeah.
One area that my parents lived was a lot of factories as well as homes, and men could walk to their home and walk home from work, come home for lunch. I mean, it was a close-knit group, and you felt safe. There was all kinds of playgrounds and swimming pools and movie theaters, for the kids.
Yeah.
Kids played out in the street, unless it was on like the busy streets. I agree. I would agree with your mom. Totally different now, unfortunately.
It's a shame too, because all those factories are abandoned, and that's where a lot of like the druggies and stuff will stay, and they'll use and stuff there. Then there's Needle Park that I'm assuming you probably played in Needle Park as a kid, and now it's just like it's just the worst place to go. It's zombie land there, you know.
I never played in Needle Park. I didn't know it was Needle Park until my sister-in-law moved to Kensington. And I said, oh, look at the pretty park. Now, I remembered as a child driving by it.
Okay.
But it was Needle Park. I mean, of course, a lot of the parks anymore in certain parts of the city. Hunting Park is another one.
Agreed.
Beautiful park when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You don't want to be there at night or anything.
Yeah. My mom lived in that area too, she said. Hunting Park. Yeah, not hunting, hunting.
Hunting. Hunting. Yep.
Yeah. Pete, what were you saying, bud?
Oh no, I'm just saying, like I don't know if people appreciate how big of a neighborhood Kensington is. It's like bigger than like a lot of other, like 3 other like it's like the Northeast is huge, then Kensington, and then the rest of the city.
I would say would you say like Kensington is like Port Richmond and Fishtown combined would be about the size,
It's
right?
probably bigger than those two combined.
It does extend out.
Yeah,
it does. It's huge.
Because doesn't it hit the river? Doesn't it hit the river too? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it goes from Juniata all the way down until you get to, to Sprint to a Girard. I mean, it's a huge area.
Yeah, massive stuff. I remember I worked in Kensington. I worked at K&A. I worked on Allegheny at Kensington and Allegheny. My uncle owned a tax office there. I'll tell that story one day when, well, I guess the statute of limitations is over, but it was a big run-in with the FBI. But either way, so I was working at the office, right? And like I would park my car right out front and I would sit by the window watching my car all day. Because I was like, if one of these sons of bitches come near my car, I'm going to kill them. But I remember I'm sitting at my desk and I'm like, what I was doing, I was just processing tax forms, right? Like that's all I was doing. I was just processing through. And like one of the big gimmicks there was if you're single, self-employed, and you have dependents, you can claim dependents and get almost $2,000 per dependent, right?
It's called the child tax credit, Matt.
Yeah. So yeah, you would know about this. So in Kensington, I remember when the FBI agent came to me, he said the national tax return rate, it was like 36% or something like that. The national average was like a return rate of 36%. This office was averaging a 98% return rate, right? And he was like, why are so many people self-employed here? And I was like, have you been to Kensington? Do you not know what? You're lucky they're filing for taxes at all, bub. You know?
Well, some people might not realize this, but there actually is a line on your tax return where you can report illegal income, such as the drug trades. That way you don't get caught like Al Capone, because that's what took him down was tax avoidance. So just always remember the tax man is watching.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. The tax man was watching, and turned out to be quite an experience. It was so the week of my brother Asshole's wedding. It was, I think it might have been the day before, right? Or it was like the wedding was on a Saturday, so it was the Thursday before. And I remember these two FBI agents, they were. God, from I guess there's like a tax agency. I don't know, or FBI.
I mean, the IRS is the one that does all the paperwork, but it may have been the FBI enforcing it.
Yeah. So they came and knocked on the door, and like I had to come out, and like they had to call my boss at my job saying like I was gonna be late, and they like asked me all these questions and everything about, and that's when they were saying like the national averages, and that's when I was like,
I'm sure you have car trouble again, Matt. No, you can talk to Officer so-and-so. I am done with the FBI.
Yeah, I was like, this is agent. I told him, I was like, look, if you want to talk to me, you have to call my boss and tell him I'm going to be late. And he was like, this is agent blah, blah, blah. This is my blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is real. But either way, didn't work at that office much longer after that. So I'm sitting in the office one day, right? This is how the neighborhood is. People have seen The Wire. This is where The Wire gets like, this is The Wire on steroids. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm looking out the window and I see this kid. So like where we were, I think it's D, maybe might be the last street before the Ave, before Kensington Ave. I think D or G, right? And so I'm on Allegheny, and this kid comes running down D Street and cuts and turns the corner heading towards the L, and he's flying, right? And I'm like, why is that kid running so fast? All of a sudden, I see a group of like 10 guys come around the corner after him and chase him all the way to the L. And then he gets on the L and he gets away. And I'm like, man, he must have robbed those guys or stole something or whatever. But I was like, that's just the kind of area you're in, you know what I mean? And that's a nice story. But no, my mom would say the same, it would change, but she would also say this, because I have a lot of family that lives down there now, and she would say, and I would agree, that people that live in Kensington wouldn't live anywhere else. They love it there. That's
like people who live in South Philadelphia.
True.
They born and raised in South Philadelphia, and they wouldn't go anywhere else. Born and raised in the Northeast, for the most part, Oxford Circle with my grandparents.
Yeah.
I loved it there, until it wasn't what it used to be. Yeah. And when you start seeing drug deals going down and cops getting shot at the end of your street.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you should just, if your child comes in and says, I heard gunshots, believe them, because I'm like, oh, no, there's not. Go outside and play. It's fine. Apparently there were gunshots. So
you're like, I don't care if there was a rocket going off. Get the hell away from me. No, that's a shame. I mean, that's honestly where I'm at now in Mayfair. It's very much like kind of the same, where it's like, before, everyone owned their home. They took great care of their property. The lawns looked great. The backyards looked great. There wasn't a ton of trash. Now it's like a lot of people rent and they just don't care. They just don't care. And that's really where the deterioration of the neighborhoods come from. It's people, and I'm not saying it's a certain class of people. It's all different races and everything. But it's the people that don't care. They just come, they're renting, so they destroy the property and then they just leave and they don't care. And that's really what does it. But
that's the thing. At the end of the day, you need a sense of community to keep everyone together. Like you need fairs and you need I don't know, like a church, but like there's always institutions that kept people, invested in each other.
Oh, remember our block parties, Peter?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the block parties.
Oh gosh, we used to have big ones on our street, and always Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And it, when you live in the city, no matter with row homes, you're talking like 300 houses in a block.
Yeah.
With lots of kids, and we used to have so much fun. Until it got to the point where there's always a few that like to spoil it for the rest of.
There's always so Mom, that was actually like one of the things that I missed the most from the city in my childhood was the trick or treating, because trick or treating in the Northeast was like like you're hitting how many houses on a block, and you're like, you don't even have to walk a mile, and you got the full candy bag, and trick or treating's nice in the suburbs because they give you the king size, so you're like, oh okay, I don't have to do as many houses, I'm the king size. But I guess it was 10 years ago. I had moved in with Matt and Jerkbeard in the Roxborough area.
Yeah.
And I remember that first Halloween there, I was like, this is Halloween as I remembered as a kid. Just like you could not, the kids were just out all night for like 3 hours, and it was nonstop. Every 2 seconds, your doorbell's ringing.
Oh yeah. We ran out of candy, I remember too. Yeah. Oh man. That's great. I mean, but dude, that's the best part of it, where like having those memories and stuff. I'll tell you, nothing really brings a neighborhood together like a block party.
Oh yeah,
that's like what would like unite a neighborhood and everything like that. And but you're right in saying though that there's always, now at least, there's always someone that ruins it, and there's always someone that tries to crap all over it, and it's not fair for everybody else.
Yeah, it's a sin because most of the families are hardworking and they just want to have a good time and have their kids safe. Now, when we moved out of the city into the suburbs, where we met you, Matt. And
where Pete's life changed forever.
Our neighborhood's like a development of 75 homes, but they're like half-acre lots. So it's not as close. You kind of know people if you have children, but if you don't have, the neighbor on the one side, the neighbor on the other side, maybe across the street.
The asshole with the convertible that speeds too fast.
Oh yeah.
But we have now. It's nice because one of the families that moved in, the couple, they created a Facebook page for our development.
Oh, that's great.
And everybody's a part of it. And then news goes out. If you want to get rid of something, they post pictures. They now do ice cream socials. They have an ice cream truck come in. During the pandemic, they had a water truck going around, water ice truck, and you could just do a credit card, to pay for. You let her know. They got a photographer that came to your outside of your house, and you stood outside and she took pictures. And they do Halloween parties and Christmas time and summer and Easter egg. I mean, and I thought, now that kind of brings me back to how it was when we were in the city. And I thought, what didn't we have this when my kids were little? That would have been so Facebook. Good. Yeah, we had no Facebook, so that's true.
I wonder, I mean,
Nice.
yeah, but it's still like, I feel like the moms back then were the Facebook, you know, like,
Yes.
they're the neighborhood gossip. They're the ones setting up the big events and saying, oh, I'm bringing this to the block party and I'm bringing this. And
everybody get out on Saturday. Got to sweep the street.
Well, it used to be everybody watched out for each other's kids.
Yes.
And if your kid talked back to one of the adults, their mother would smack them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you wouldn't, I mean, Peter has a good friend who he's still very good friends with after all these years. They were born a month apart. Yeah. And he'll tell you stories about how, you know, I would smack his butt when he was, you know, being fresh or something. But yeah, you watched out for each other. You know, it just was the way it was.
I feel like everyone had the same kind of morals of like, don't be an asshole. Obviously, you're not going to hurt the kid, but if the kid needs a smack, he needs a damn smack, and that's the end of it.
I didn't really smack him. I don't know why he says that, but I probably said, "Oh, I'm going to smack you. I'm going to tell your mom," and he went running. But
well, I think it's also it also is the geography of the neighborhoods, right? You have these row homes with an alleyway in the street. And then you have the one parents at the one end and the one parents on the other end. And you're like, okay, my responsibility is to make sure they don't go into this street. Yeah. And my responsibility is to make sure they don't go into that street. And they just stay here corralled.
Yeah. Better times. So, well, let's get back. We kind of went bird walking there, but I love that discussion because that's really like, that's the truth. You know, I feel like in some areas, the city kind of like, that's what people miss. And that's what they want to get back to, those types of neighborhoods. Yeah. And you see it even in the suburbs. Like people know, like, look, like I know this, right? Like they're in our neighborhood, like say for instance, if someone were to attempt to break into our house, which they'd be stupid because we have cameras and an elite security system. So anyone listening, fucking try it because I'll kill you. And so, but either way, like I know like my neighbors would be all over it and I would do the same thing for them. You know what I mean? So there is still some of that, like looking out for each other. And like we like, when I take my daughter for a walk and stuff, like the neighbors go ape shit when they see her and stuff. So like, there's still little things like that, but it's not every neighbor. It's only a few, you know, which is like, that's kind of what
Matt, that's like, this might come to a shock to you, but apparently the neighbor behind me is friends with you, a guy named Chuck or Charles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
and he was telling me that he keeps an eye on the neighborhood and I don't have to worry. He's got us locked down.
No, Chuck's a great dude. He actually, so I knew Chuck, so shout out Graham's Pub, land of the free, home of the brave. But Chuck was a cook at Graham's Pub, and I worked with him, and he's a great dude, great dude.
Yeah, so I got him looking out for me now. So
you're lucky then. He's a great dude, and he will look out for you. He even said because he hit me up and said he's your neighbor, and I was like, he's the man. He's like, dude, I love him on the show. He's a listener on the show, so thank you for that, Chuck. But he's also like, he's a good dude, and when he says he's looking out for you, he means it, and it's a good thing.
I believe it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, okay. So back to Mr. McCormick. So you're growing up in K&A, the Greater Northeast, Frankfurt, Oxford Circle. You would bounce around from house to house with your mom and stuff like that and your parents. But you would end up saying like, you know, F these guys, I want some stability, right? And you would move in with your dad's parents, your grandparents, right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my parents were very young when they had me, 18 years old. And they had 6 kids very quickly. It's
a lot.
They just couldn't deal with it all. So I was the oldest. I was the first grandchild, and my grandmother always wanted a little girl, but she had 2 boys. But you know, so my grandmother would take me, you know, to her house, and I'd spend, you know, a couple of days or a week, and it got to be the point where I was going there all the time, and then finally just decided it was a normal, loving, you know, place to be where it was chaotic and
kids know
and nuts. So I learned at a very young age what was normal and abnormal. So I chose the normal and
the safe.
And safe. So I never looked back. And so I consider my grandmother as my mother. And my grandfather as my father. I have no hate or, you know, anything for my parents. It just
it is what it is.
When you're a child, you need someone to meet your needs.
Yes.
You know, and
it's not that you need it, you deserve it. You're a child.
You know? Well, you don't need a friend. You need a parent. Like you don't there's one
My mother when I was 16 or something, she says, "Do you need birth control pills?" I'm like, "Huh?" She just want to sit and smoke pot. Do you want some beer? I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Well, I'll smoke, but yeah, I'll take some beer, when I would visit." But no.
All right, Willie Nelson. I guess this is how we're getting down.
No, I was very fortunate that I had a grandparents that would take on that responsibility.
Yeah.
And so I had a great life.
And it turned out, it turned out pretty well, as living proof. And that's honestly, that's great too. Because I think, and I see it now with my daughter, like and I bet you were the same way, where it's like you're like a day changer and then you turn into a life changer. You know what I mean? Like you can have a cruddy day at work or something like that, and you come home and you see like a smiling kid that wants to give you a hug, and you're just like, well, this just changes everything. But there's also the reverse of that, where you come home and you see a little brat being a pain in the ass, and you're like, Jesus, could this get any worse? But
and then they go to sleep and you say, oh, look at that little angel. So there you go.
No, but that's great. So, and honestly too, that's something that's not uncommon today. I have a ton of cousins where, I have one cousin, rest his soul, God bless him. And he had 10 kids and he's passed away now. And all his kids are being raised by my aunt, which would be his grandmom. And it's just, and it's just, it is what it is, but it's what's, in the end of the day, it's what's best for the kid. And you were able to figure that out right away.
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, you grew up with your grandparents and everything like that. And when you were there, you would go to some school. So you would go to like Catholic school a little bit, but you're doing some Catholic school stuff, but you were bounce around for a little bit. But then you were with your grandparents. And then when you got with your grandparents, that was, you were like 11 at that time. So you were still in elementary school, and that's kind of where you kind of just went right into the public school system there in like Oxford Circle and stuff.
I was in public school every time I stayed with my grandparents long enough where I had to be in school. So I actually went back and forth. So when I went with my parents, I was in Catholic school, made my sacraments in second grade.
Yeah.
Then a year I was with my grandparents the following year, and then I would be back and forth, but always came back to the same school at my grandparents.
Yeah.
So I actually did kindergarten through sixth grade, because you could spend 6 months at one and then 6 months at the other. So,
wow.
Oh yeah, I went back and forth. So I actually did all 6 years plus kindergarten. Of course, back then kindergarten, all you did was play and take a nap. Yeah. Now they actually learn stuff. Yeah. And then I went to junior high school from there, and then off to high school.
Nice. And then, like you said, you made your sacrament, so you were kind of brought up Catholic. Were your grandparents like kind of?
Well, my family split. My father was Catholic. My mother was Protestant. My grandfather was Catholic. My grandmother was Protestant.
Oh wow!
So my father practiced. My grandfather didn't until he was dying. And then,
really? So your dad practiced, but his father didn't.
Right. Yeah. And my father did not. It's funny. My grandmother and my grandfather could not get married in the Catholic Church because she was not Catholic. They had to get married in the rectory. And then when she was getting married, to allow her to marry him, she had to sign a paper that said the children would be raised Catholic, and which is not uncommon.
Wow.
So
but they wouldn't let them get married in the church, because now you still have to do the same, but you can get married in the church.
Yes, you can. And so she had 2 boys, and he says, you're going to have to take them to church. He goes, oh, that's your church. You're going to take them. My grandfather didn't go to church. Yeah. So they never went to church. So my father and my uncle did not actually become Catholic until they went into the Air Force.
Really?
And when you go into the service, I think back then, and I'm not sure,
had to,
I think you had to pick a religion. So they went and received their sacraments when they were in the Air Force. And my uncle didn't continue when he got out, but my father did continue.
That's fascinating.
So that's why we ended up in Catholic school some of the time.
Yeah, but still, that's great. I mean, as much as like, the Catholic Church is what it is at times, it does like there are some good morals that you will learn there, and like some
Yeah.
good things that
Yeah,
it's
for
not-
any of the religions, it's
Exactly.
there's really no big difference, you know.
yeah.
They would
it's somewhat-
disagree, but
Yeah.
you know.
It's similar to talking like being part of a neighborhood, or like it's an institution. Like this is something that keeps a community together. Like it's a kind of a
Yes.
thing. Like we have this in common. We see each other at least once
Yeah.
a week, and then we do, you know, like all the activities together, and it, you know, it keeps everybody caring about each other.
Yeah, yeah, and there's not, and you know, it does have its ups and downs. I'll tell you what, though.
But it is interesting because I feel like now it's more you were raised religious and lose it. Like that's where I'm kind of like, oh well, like not religious at all, and then you kind of get into a situation. But I mean, hey, being in World War II will help you find God. You know, like that is.
Oh, that is damn right. He probably made some deals over there that was like, all right, well, I signed the contract for this one. I made it back.
Yeah, hey, I survived Thursday, so I guess.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And so that is interesting. I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 9th grade. Then I was politely asked to leave Catholic school and then finish in public school. But I remember, you know, like there's sometimes where it's like, to me at least, there's been some frustrating situations with the Catholic Church. So for instance, my godson, right? He was getting baptized and I was going to be his godfather. So I had to go get the paper filled out at the church. Right. Mm-hmm. And I took I worked from home that day and I took a lunch break and I was like, look, I was an altar server at this church. I went to here for years, like my whole family here. My mom was a Eucharistic minister. I went to the school here. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to walk in. He's going to say, how you doing? He's going to sign it and I'm going to leave. Right. I go in there and this priest is giving me such a hard time. Right. And he's like, you know, he's like,
Matt, you were wearing a Madonna t-shirt. So
yeah. Yeah. He's like, is that a Star of David on your hat? And I was like, whoa, relax, buddy. No, I wasn't doing that. But no, so I'm there and I'm like, he's asking me all these questions. I was like, yeah, I live with my girlfriend now. Well, she was my fiance at the time. I was like, you know, I live with my fiance and, you know, and I'm like, I'm not really, you know, I come every once in a while, but I'm not an altar practicing Catholic, but I do, there's some certain things I believe in, things like that. And he's saying, he's like, well, I can't sign this. And I was like,
a little
what?
too honest.
Yeah.
Well,
that was he an older guy or a younger guy?
Younger. And
yes, that's right. I knew it was going to be younger.
But he was like, I can't sign this. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I can't sign this. Like you're living with your, you know, your significant other out of wedlock. And I'm like, yes, so? And I was like, you got to test drive the car before you buy it, pal. You know? And he was like, is that the kind of message you want to relay to your godson? I was like, this kid's going to be a good person because I'm going to make sure he's a good person and he's not an asshole trying to scam someone to get a signature for a baptism, you know? And he was like, and he's like, you know what? You need to take these classes and like all these things. And these classes are cost like, well, like they would be like $400 a class and I'd have to take 5 of them. And I'm like, this guy's just looking for a money grab here. You know what I mean? And like in my mind, I'm like, dude, doing the right thing would be to sign this and let's go. And then he's like, his whole thing was like, you're having premarital sex and you're living with your significant other. I was like, whoa. You're the one saying that we're having premarital sex. I never said that. I'm waiting until marriage. How about that? Right. And then in my mind, I'm about to say, I'm like, look, buddy, and I'm like, cause he was like kind of a twerp. I was like, either you sign it or I'm going to fucking make you sign it. Cause I'm on my lunch break now and I got 10 minutes to get back. You know, and I was like,
this guy can send you to hell.
Well, I mean, if he would be like, get in line, you know. So there's plenty of people that want to do that, but this guy was just like, you know, you'd think the Catholic Church would get their act together, but he was really like, if he was there to help me and he really thought I needed help, that's different. But he wasn't. He was looking for a money grab, and that's
the problem.
No. You have to take those classes, whether you go to church every day. You have to go. And Matt, what did we talk about before? We said we don't talk about politics or religion. There
right.
you go.
You're right. I'm sorry. You're right.
That's okay.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But Matt, next time go with the older priest. They've been through enough shit. They're like, he's Catholic enough. The younger ones are the hard asses.
Yeah. That's really what it was. So okay. So you're right. I broke the cardinal rule, and I'm sorry. So
that's okay.
So
we all make mistakes. You can say Our Father and a Hail Mary. We'll be good.
Bless me, Miss McCormick.
Bless me, Father. Yes.
Yeah. No. Okay. So while you were at school, so you would end up, you did Fells Junior High, you went to Frankfurt High School. While you were at school, you were doing some swimming, and you did like swimming for Max Myers. It seems like swimming was a thing because we would talk about it with Pete, because we brought up the swim team a bunch of times, but it seems like you were doing everything. You did the water ballet, you did your varsity swimming and diving, you were JV tennis, varsity bowling, softball, you know what I mean? Like you were just out, like, you know, you were out there, you were an athlete, but it seems like, you know, like you just were like, hey, let's go, like you wanted the activity as well. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, it's you know, being part of a group. You know, friends and doing things that I absolutely love doing.
Yeah.
And my mom, you were actually a very good swimmer, weren't you?
I thought I was, but I probably really wasn't. But you know,
if you make swimming's competitive. If you made varsity, like you can't.
Yeah, but they were really bad. I mean, I was the second best on the team. Yeah. Now the girl that was the best could beat me without a doubt. I mean, she was really fast. She could even do a flip turn. I couldn't do a flip turn. I'd have to swim down, touch the edge, and turn around. But everybody else, just nice girls. They were swimming, but they were not very good. Yeah. So we never won a meet, but I did win some races. Yeah. I actually even did diving, and I don't know how I did it. I mean, I remember doing a dive, and it's called like an inward dive. So you're standing backwards, like you're going to do a back dive. Yeah. And then you jump up and you flip so that you're going in head first. Yeah. And somebody screamed because I was extremely close to the board. And after that, I couldn't do it. Yeah, it was good. It was a good dive. I got good points with it. But after that, I kind of got afraid. Yeah. You know, because, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, they did. It was like, oh.
Oh, that's so okay. I see. So they were like, they kind of like freaked you out saying like, oh, you're so good. I loved watching. I love like, especially like in the Olympics and like where we went to school, like, you know, like North Penn, really great swim and diving team. I loved watching that because that to me, like, that's a show, you know, like when they're out there doing like the doubles and like the flips and the turns and the whack-a-moles and everything. So great. What was water ballet?
Oh, I did that. It was the Max Myers. It was the public pool I went to. I was on the swim team and on the water ballet. And it's kind of similar to, if you look at the Olympics, synchronized swimming. Yeah. Okay. That is what water ballet is.
I see.
Only we didn't have little things to squeeze our nose. So if you didn't do it right, you got water all up your nose and then you're coughing and sputtering and, you know, but
how do you judge swimmers? Do you judge people when you see them hold their nose? You're like, look at this amateur just holding his nose.
Yeah. Look at this student holding the nose.
Look at this yellow belt.
With one arm, huh? Come on. Yeah.
No, well, I used to try to do that just to learn how to get my feet up in the air, but you know. It's the same thing as synchronized swimming that you see in the Olympics.
That's fun though.
Yeah.
And man, I told the story before, but I thought I was good at swimming too because I kept getting blue ribbons until my mother burst the bubble and let me know that they were personal bests. And she was like, Pete, do you know how you get taller every year? Yeah. Do you know how you've gained weight every year? Well, you also get a little bit faster at swimming.
He thought he was so proud of himself, and he tried, but he was on the B team, and he said,
B for best.
Did I get there first? I said, oh, you were wonderful, hon. You were wonderful.
Yeah, but that's also part of being a
she let my dreams be dreams.
Yeah, let him think he's the Rocket. I'll tell you this. He beat a nationally ranked swimmer in a swimming race, and I was there to witness it, and it was fantastic. He won by disqualification, but he still won. So,
the best way to technically winning is the best way to win.
Yeah. Hey, it doesn't matter. Win's a win.
Amen. Amen. So I did want to ask this. So you went to Frankfurt High School. My dad grew up in Scranton. And in Scranton, he went to this place called Central High School, right? And he is taking me there. Now it's like a college and stuff, but he's taking me there, and like I've seen it, and they had separate entrances for the boys and the girls. Whereas that,
well, Central, back when your dad was there, was boys only. It was the top school in the city because Girls High was for the girls. And then, you know, back in, and this is kind of politics stuff, but, you know, equal rights for girls and boys, they took them to court. And so they had to let girls into Central. And for some reason, boys didn't want to go to Girls High. But so now the school is both boys and girls. Now, whether it's separate entrances, I don't know.
So wait, so the high school is like Central High School?
Yeah, it was like Central High School was the top boys' high school in the city, and then there was also Girls High, which was the Central for girls. And then a bunch of the girls were like, "Hey, I want to go to Central," and I guess they sued for it and they won, and they got to go to Central.
Yeah.
And now I don't know if there's any public high schools.
I don't think there's any public schools that are allowed to be all girls or all boys.
Yeah, they're all co-ed.
Catholic school, private schools, you can do that, but not public.
We've had a bunch of people on the show that have gone to an all boys or an all girls school. Yeah. I mean, honestly,
they all went to Catholic schools.
Catholics. You're right. Yeah, all girl, all boy Catholic school. But I'll tell you what, they freaking loved it, and they rave about it.
Well, you know what they say, Mom? They talk about how there was less pressure. Like I don't have to worry about boys. You don't have to worry about girls. I can,
Well, your sister, your oldest sister, would say the same thing. She went to an all-girls private Catholic high school.
Oh.
And she came out of her shell.
Oh.
She really, you know, the kids that she went to elementary school were from a whole bunch of rich families. Now, some of them were very nice, but there were some that were just little assholes.
Yeah.
And you know, according to their parents, their kids did nothing wrong. So tormented my oldest daughter, and you know, and she finally had enough of them, and you know, but she went off to the high school, and she wasn't, you know, I was just hoping that the high school was better than the elementary school, and it was. She came out of her shell. It wasn't about who was dressing how or the makeup or whatever, because it was all girls. It was academics. That's really where you competed.
All right.
And she's smart. She's a smart girl. And she would argue with the nuns. She argued with the nuns. And it was funny because she was very good at math and English and writing. Amazing. And she said that she wanted to go up to advanced placement with the math. And the nun said to her, "You'll never be able to do that." Well, don't ever tell her that. She did. And she got an A.
And she rubbed it right in that nun's face.
And she, you know, I said she was like a rebel without a cause, because no matter what, you know, she always had to buck the system. She got a great education. She got almost all scholarships for Drexel. Went 4 years and then went into a master's and a PhD program at Temple. And she's an economist, and she's just very smart. So if she had gone to a boy-girl school, that I don't think would have happened. She would have stayed in her shell. She would have been afraid to, and a lot of girls like this, you know, it's more and more, it's not like that, but
maybe academics wouldn't have been so sought out after.
Academics would not have been the top priority. And then you're so afraid of how you're going to appear or come off to somebody of the opposite sex that, you know, she maybe not debate somebody in class because, you know.
She didn't want to look like
That's the important thing to learn about life is like, it's not a one size fits all, right? Like, you know, like everybody's different, and everybody has different little picadillos and strengths and weaknesses. And it's about trying to find what fits you and where you fit in this world.
No, that's great. That's great. That's plus I would say this, Pete, and I always thought this, that your sister and my sister would get along. Like the way that they are. Either they would get along or they're button heads. One or the other. So that's great. So okay, so let's talk about this. So you're in high school, right? And this is kind of where we start you had a job prior to this. So you and we'll talk about this more. And when we did our pre-show, you'd mentioned this, but you've always loved kids and you know, always wanted to have kids and a big family and stuff like that. So your first real job, you were hustling, doing some babysitting. Is that right?
Yeah. I used to babysit a lot in the neighborhood. and I always wanted 10 kids.
Yeah.
So so I met my husband, you know, we were hanging in the same group, but he went to Catholic school, I went to public. And I remember saying to him, oh, I want 10 kids. And he said, oh, really? Well, I know a lady down the street who's got 6 kids and she needs a babysitter. His whole thought was, well, this will kind of cure her of wanting, you know,
scare you straight.
So, and they were a tough group sometimes, you know, kids are kids. And so I did say to him later, well, you know, maybe not 10, but I want 6.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we had with 6 kids.
Yeah. 6 of the best kids in town. I'll tell you that. So,
sure, okay. We can go with that.
Well, 1 or 2 of them are okay. So,
yeah.
But no, they're all great. So, all right. So you love kids, you're doing the babysitting, and I'll tell you this, people don't realize this, but if you're doing it, you can make some money babysitting. That's like, you could really put away some cash. Cause like, think about this, right? You're like, you can go there, you're going to watch the kid. Eventually you're going to put the kid to sleep, but then you're hanging out watching TV and doing nothing for a couple hours, just seeing if the kid wakes up. Right. Like,
oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think I made like 50 cents or $1 an hour.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't even know how much. I mean, we we haven't had a sitter yet, but when we do, we know exactly who the girl's going to be, who's going to babysit our kid.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking forward to seeing what the bill's going to be, you know.
You know, to Matty for child.
Yeah. That's true. Spare no expense. But yeah, so okay, so you started out, you're doing your babysitting and you know, loved kids all the way through, and then you got a job at a bakery at the age of 15. Is that right?
Yeah. I wanted to make more money than $1 for 50 cents an hour. So, I used to babysit even when I worked at the bakery.
Matt, she wanted to roll in the dough.
Yeah, well, I used to eat the dough, so you know.
Well, like but you were working at the bakery while in school, and then you were still doing some babysitting on the side. Yeah. Oh wow! So how did you get the job at the bakery? How did you like it? And
my husband, we were good friends. We hung in the same group. He worked there. Okay. He worked there from the time he was 13 till he graduated high school, and he recommended me for the job. Me and a couple of other girls in our group, and I worked there for a year, and I liked it. One, I love cake, and when you're working, you can eat as much of whatever you want when you were there. Yeah. So I would eat, whole strawberry shortcakes and stuff like that,
Well, at that age, you could pack it away and it doesn't go anywhere.
And,
she was swimming nonstop, and
and then they fired me.
Mom, why did they fire you?
They said I ate too much, so they couldn't afford me.
That's not
There is
true.
a specific story I remember about.
What's this?
So they used to make this really good round loaf of bread. Okay. Now I liked the inside of the bread. Yeah. And one of the girls I worked with liked the crust on the outside.
Okay.
So I would eat the inside and she would eat the outside. Well, she didn't eat the outside and she left it there, and they sold it. And then people came back and said, I think you have mice because the bread's all gone inside.
Oh my God. Who's the psycho that eats just the crust?
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
Is this person a convicted murderer now? Like, who does the inside's the best? But it was the best.
I only like the egg whites.
Yeah, I only eat the crust on the pizza. I never eat the middle. Like,
the bread may have had a little bit to do with it.
And just gives you the crust. Like, throws the rest of the sandwich away.
Well, my grandson will eat the crust. And like my granddaughter doesn't like the crust on her toast, so she eats the toast and he eats the crust. There's the egg. Teach his own.
Mom, they are one And between the ages of what, 3 and 5, like
yeah, they have really refined taste at that age.
they're not selling anybody loaves of bread at the corner bakery.
Well, I will say this. So, how incredible is fresh baked bread?
It's the best.
Is there anything better? Oh my God!
Yeah,
fresh out of the oven. When I worked at Vinny T's, I would get my hands on some fresh baked bread, and let me tell you, you know what else was great? When I worked at my dad's store, he would get the pretzels delivered. Did you guys get the pretzels delivered at the deli?
Yeah, did we have pretzels, Peter?
And
yes,
would they come in hot?
You know what? They would get delivered so early, it didn't even really matter because I think they would get delivered at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Like 2 to 3 hours before the store opened.
Yeah, that's when my dad's would get delivered, but we had to be there that early because the store opened at like 5 or something. But like I think maybe 5, but yeah, whatever. Yeah. Go ahead.
The other thing my mom just touching on by her work experience is the idea of the corner neighborhood delis, bakeries, and butcher shops. Like you weren't going to Acme, right, Mom? You weren't going to ShopRite. It was like, hey, every corner had a shop on it. And like, this is where I get my hair done. This is where I get my bakery. This is like, right? Like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, we had we went to the one corner store and get our fresh meat. We went to the other one to the deli to get our lunch meat, our bread, our eggs. You would go to the hairdresser was on the corner. And then where we all hung as teenagers was the candy store with ice cream with a pinball machine inside. And that's where, we would go and we, sit there with our cigarettes and play pinball, which was illegal then.
Insidious, not Insidious element, but I've heard this candy store had a little back room operation.
Apparently, I didn't know it at the time, and apparently he was a dirty old man too. But hey, he sold penny candy. He was cheap, but that was just his day job because apparently he was a bookie. So
a bookie at the candy shop.
Yeah, it kind of explained every once in a while why the cops would walk him out in handcuffs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's got bad Swedish fish. Yeah, no, that honestly, I would freaking love that. If you lived if I lived in a neighborhood now where I had a bakery, I had a deli, I had a grocer with like the veggies and whatever,
and throw in the pizza place, and
that's
and that the touch on what we're talking about earlier, that was the Facebook back in the day. Is anytime you went to any of these stores, you were seeing your neighbors, you were getting the gossip. You're like, oh, I had to smack Danny on the butt because he did this, or I had to keep this person out of the street, and you see what so and so was wearing. What a
no, but and you're talking with like the people at the shops too, like the butcher. I think that's a fascinating profession. I would love to to be like an actual butcher. You know what I mean? Like to know how to take apart an animal. I think that would be awesome. Like a cool skill. That and lock picking. That's what I want to learn. So, but no, that's really cool. And I kind of miss that's some old world stuff. Like, it'd be tough to support kind of like to make a living doing that now just because of the way things are,
Well, I mean, you can't compete with the big guys, right? Once Acme's invented it, you can't uninvent it.
Yeah, no, you're right. So, okay, so let's keep it going. So you're done at the bakery, then you went to McDonald's, but I want to say this. If you go to McDonald's now, any stunad can press a button on that thing and you're good. Back then, you had to know some stuff to be working that machine. Was that right?
Oh, you had to take a math test, and you could, and they didn't really have calculators. They used to have these huge, big adding machines, but you had to take a math test, and you had to not that far back, but that big. Well, you're too young, but you had to add everything in your head.
Plus the test,
and then just put the answer on the sheet. So if you passed the test, then you got the job. And back then, now they go in and they put in everything, and then it gives them the total. You give them the money, and then the machine tells you how much change. We had to add it all up plus the tax in our head and only ring up the full total. Yeah. And then you had to count out change. And not with some machine telling you how much change is due. It's a shame because when you go, if something breaks down, they don't know how to give change. Yeah. They don't know how to add it up. But that's what you had to do back then. And
Yeah.
for quite a few years, you had to do that.
No, I'll tell you.
But at least now, like it's all electronic. We're like, no, you can't even open up the cash register. Because me and Matt came up when it was like, oh, you learn, like we have calculators for you, but you can still make change. And so if the power went down, you were still expected to work. You're like, oh fuck, now I have to learn how to.
You're like, oh man,
I can't even open the register. I can't even open up the doors.
Yeah. No, dude, you're 100% right. I know at Graham's Pub, Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, for a long time there, it's a cash-only establishment, but for a long time there, they had a machine, like a register, that was ancient, that was like, this thing, what the heck? But it was the same thing where you had to add everything up in your head and do all, they don't tax booze, but like do all the tax and everything like that. That's, takes some skill. And like, honestly, I kind of always liked it because it's like, it's a workout for your brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Matt, down the line, we'll get to the store that my mother and father owned, and they didn't just not have a cash register; they just had a box that we had to use. And they taught us how to count down. Like, oh no, you just start if it's 3:30, then you start counting down from 30. Then you owe 70. Like I was just like, oh my god, what? This is the. You guys talk about Common Core. This is like this is real Common Core here. How to give change out.
Yeah, you're not sparing any expenses here.
At least our kids could give change, and you had to do it.
That's true. That's true. Pete, you are an accountant, so
I am an accountant. Yeah, this is true.
Maybe there's something to that. They got you started in the numbers game early. So okay, so let's keep it moving. So you finish high school, and then after high school, is that when you started working at the insurance company?
Yeah, I worked at the insurance company for a year. I would just work in an office and collect monies if they came to pay their premiums. Yeah. Office work kind of stuff. And then I went to hairdressing school.
So real quick, when we were talking, you brought up doing shorthand. Can you kind of explain what was shorthand?
Well, what I did was speed writing.
Okay.
When I learned that in high school, and other people learn shorthand, which is all these little different symbols that mean certain words.
Yeah. Right, Mom. So before there was tape recorders or anything. So like basically you're trying to keep up with people that are speaking, fast as can possibly be.
Like a stenographer.
Well, a stenographer, yeah, very similar. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And so, my boss would dictate a letter to me, but speed writing, sometimes if I didn't, type it up right away, I kind of forget. I had a good memory, so I can remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I remember one time she said I couldn't remember what she said, and I'm trying it because I didn't type it up till the next day. And I said, well, I can't read it back. I'm not quite sure. She goes, but you're supposed to be able to do that. I said, yeah, but it's not as good as shorthand, and that's what shorthand was. It was certain symbols that always meant the same thing. Whereas speed writing was you did
like, the whole gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a couple of letters of the word.
I can skip does and uhs and all this kind of other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I honestly, I would love co-host on the Weekend Poppin', Steve Cabot, has told us that he dated a court stenographer for a while. And dude, and I would love to get a stenographer on the show. I think that is a fascinating profession. You know what I mean? And like the things you would see and the things you must have, heard and all that stuff. I think it's like really, really cool. But
that's my husband actually did that went to school for it. He wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh.
And so, but he didn't have money, so he thought, well, he would work as a court stenographer
and get in with
and
the
then
judges.
Get into law school and get to know the judges as he's working and the lawyers.
Yeah.
And you had to get a certain speed. And it's this machine, you go up and down like a typewriter, but it makes all these symbols and you read it back to the judge when he asks. You have to type up a whole report for it. And so when he got to the speed that he needed, where he was going to apply for jobs, New York went bankrupt and they all came down to Philly. So then there was no jobs, and then they increased the
like the speed.
Yeah, the speed. Yeah. So he's like, the hell with it. And he was working in the deli through college. So and still working there. And he said, can I buy your deli? So when when the guy was ready to retire, he bought the deli.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's not jump ahead then. So, okay, so you and just so people know, when you say collecting money, right now everyone can do like a direct deposit for your insurance and all that stuff. Where
you didn't have that then.
You were legit. People were bringing cash or a check to the shop and being like, "Yep, this is my weekly. Boom, here you go."
Yeah, most of them brought cash back then, but there were some who brought a check. If they didn't have checks, if they had checks, they could mail it in with their book, and then you had to mail the book back.
Yeah.
And those that had only cash would bring it into the office, and every week they'd bring in their money, and you would mark it in.
Huh. That's fascinating.
You don't see that anymore today.
No, you do
not at all.
Wait, what do you mean now a word from our sponsor?
Are you someone who struggles picking a podcast to listen to because your time is extremely valuable?
Yeah, how'd you know?
Are you someone who says, damn, there's not enough hours in the day to pick just one?
Wait, what the fuck?
Or are you someone who's interested in a podcast where they interview a wide range of people and find out how the hell they ended up in their profession?
It's like you read my mind.
If I say yes too, can you help me out?
Oh, shit!
On an unrelated note, while we call the police, if you said yes to all those questions, then look no further and allow me to introduce you to the Working Perspectives podcast, hosted by executive producer Matt Lavelle and accompanied by co-host Party Boy Pete McCormick. As mentioned, they interview a wide range of people and find out how in the purple nurple fuck they ended up in their professions, which I think, in my opinion, as someone who previously jobbed off from one place to another until I found something I'm good at, this is something worth investing your time in. You will learn about jobs that you never knew existed. Feel the grind that some of these people felt before getting to where they are today. And just like me, it'll maybe help you find that motivation you're looking for to pursue and what it is you want to do. And also, they have great segments in the middle of the show, such as The Weekend Poppin'. Give it a shot. And my two favorites, Memory Lane and What's Going Down in Gamertown, which is a segment I'm part of, so you should definitely look into it. So, that being said, after this video, go out and listen to the Working Perspectives podcast. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All links are in the link tree, which is in the description. And now, back to the episode.
Once the movie's in theaters, it's gonna go onto the streaming services.
So, okay, so let's keep this going. So, all right. So you're done at the insurance company. So then you went to hairdressing school, like you said. How did you like hairdressing school? How did you like hairdressing? What did you do there?
I loved hairdressing school.
Yeah.
I really did. I learned, you learn on mannequins, so they don't yell at you like real people. And you learn how to shampoo, you learn how to set hair, and back then you teased hair, and curl and iron and blow dryers were just starting. Dyeing hair, doing frostings, facials, makeup, nails. You did the whole gamut. And then you had to take the boards, and you had to take somebody with you who would be your model, and you would have to do all of this stuff on them. So, who did I take? I think my sister-in-law I took with me. She wasn't my sister-in-law then, but I took her, and she had one hand with nail polish, one side of her face with makeup, one side of her hair was curled, and teased up. And so you had to do a written test, and then you had to do a practical test. So, so I didn't let that go until after I got my nursing license, just in case, because it wasn't easy to get. Yeah.
Were you married at the time when you went to hairdressing school? Or
no, okay. I wasn't married.
Okay.
So, but I liked it until I realized I wasn't that good. I wasn't. I couldn't tease for shit. And I'm telling you, I couldn't tease. I could dye hair well.
I remember you calling me chubby quite a bit, so I'm pretty sure you were good at teasing.
I could grab your hair,
the hair pull, that's the mom.
I don't care how short that hair is, I can get it. So
she used to prove it. She's like, you think it's because me and my brother, we would get a buzz cut, so that way my mom couldn't grab us. I was like, oh look, Jim, if we shave all our hair off, there's nothing she can do, and we were wrong.
Yeah, same. My mom was the same thing. The hair pull is the mom's number one. I feel like every mom did the hair pull, and then every mom had a weapon they would use. My mom was a big fan of the spoon. She loved the spoon. The big like wooden you know.
I like the flip flop.
She liked the sound of the flip flop. Or every once in a while, we would have one of those paddles with the ball in, and she would tear the ball off. I'm like, oh no, we're going hardcore.
I got that one before too. Yeah. Hey.
Apparently, it's child abuse now, so I deny all of these allegations.
That's good parenting, if you ask me. Because I'll tell you what, I freaking deserved it every time.
Well, for me, it was more the sound. I just heard the whoosh in the air. I'm like, what? Danger.
What was the scariest sound as a kid though was the belt crack, right? When
I never did a belt. I've had the belt when I was little, so no
not
belt.
A fan of the belt.
But a flip flop's okay.
Yeah, flip flop works. Plus, it's quick. You always have
soft, and
Yeah, it's more.
But there's this weird psychological
it's more the
thing.
fact is, here's the flip flop, and then they go doing what you need them to do.
But when you first experience the flip flop, there's this weird psychological thing where you see a flip flop, like, oh, I guess we're going to the beach. You're like, oh, wait a minute, no.
You're like, flip flops used to be fun. No. So then let's keep this going. So you were done hairdressing, you were honestly, everyone can tell by listening now, like you're a great gift, you're very personable, very easy to talk to, great gift for gab and all that stuff. And so like you were great at that part, but as part of like as an actual hairdresser, you felt like not so much. So then you left doing that, and then you were a waitress, and then you were bookkeeping for a small manufacturing place at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, I went after I had left hairdressing to work at the this bolt and screw company manufacturing, and I went into their bookkeeping department. So which is very good at math. So, but it was mainly just recording checks that came in, and then debit and pluses and stuff like that. So that was
where I got it. This is where it came from.
Yeah. I did that until I had my first child. So
So would you say, okay, so you're doing like the bookkeeping and stuff, was that like your 9 to 5, and then the waitress was your nighttime?
Well, the waitress after I had my daughter, I guess she was like 6 months old, is when my husband he was actually going to buy the business. So I had to go back to work to get some money together for us to put a down payment on the business. And so the quickest way to make money was waitressing.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, waitressing. My sister was a waitress, so she got me a job where she was. Another friend of mine worked for a caterer, so on weekends I'd would go and do catering, off-site catering, waitressing, where you have 200 people, you got to serve everything, soup to nuts, and clear it all out. So and I did. We were able to save a good amount of money in 6 months for
and that that's a good and kind of crazy thing that there was a point in time where you could like waitress and work at the deli, and that was enough. In 6 months you could save up and put down a down deposit to build yourself a better life and your kids us a better life. It's
what year what year was this around, Miss McCormick?
79.
Okay, so like 79. So then you're waitressing doing that. What year did you guys buy the deli?
January 1st, 1980.
Wow. Okay. So then you're working there. So you had your first child in 79. Is that right?
78.
78. So you had your first child in 78. Sorry to date you.
That's okay.
Not you. I'm sorry to date you, Pete's sister.
I can't believe she'll be 43 in November. Oh my gosh.
Man.
Time flies.
Yeah.
I know.
Doesn't look.
And here I am, only 24 years old.
Oh, Peter, what did I say about lying? I'm going to put pepper on your tongue.
Oh, only tell life. You can get away with it.
I'm going to put pepper on your tongue.
The pepper on the I actually like pepper now. It doesn't work anymore, Mom. It doesn't work.
Yeah, pepper my tongue all you want. Yeah.
All right, I used to use soap with Jimmy, and he actually liked it, so that didn't work either.
Man, I know. Soap actually looks like it should taste good, but it doesn't.
Yeah. Smells like it would taste good.
I'm like, oh, look at this. Cherries. No, not cherries. Not cherries at all.
So, okay. So how long, so 78, you had your first child, 79, you're waitressing, 80, you buy the deli. And then were you working at the deli until 85?
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
worked, gosh, we worked a lot. My husband worked about 80, 90 hours a week, and I
God
would work
bless him.
50, 60 hours a week.
So you guys live there,
Yeah.
basically.
Almost. Yeah. Yeah. And then
And
until
Mom,
I
just,
had Peter.
Just to talk, like, talk about like sacrificing all the things you had to do, like, in order to buy your first house, you and Dad lived with Graham for how long before?
A year. We got married and we moved in with your grandmother for a year to
Yeah.
save money, to buy a house.
Yeah.
And
it was a
after,
fixer-upper house, right? It was the handyman
yeah,
special
my
and everything.
husband, yeah, my husband's not
And
handy.
if anybody knows us, we are not Mr. Carlos Bowers. We are not a
Yeah.
handy people.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So we bought this house. Of course, here's the thing. I wanted to move. After a year, I want my own place. I have all this
Yeah.
stuff from my shower I can't use.
Yeah.
And my husband's cheap and he wanted to stay at his mother's.
And I've been in that basement, Matt. It is
Oh,
not finished.
Wait. You lived with your in-laws, Mrs.
Yeah, I
Butler?
lived with my mother-in-law.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
okay. So let's chat because I'm living with my in-laws
Yeah.
right now. No, don't get it to it. I love my in-laws. They're
Yeah.
absolutely great, and I love living here. And they're very, very nice to let us live here to save up so we can buy a
Yeah,
home
my
as well.
mother-in-law was scary. But
See,
I
so-
loved her to death, but she was scary.
Was
But
she protective of her little
oh,
Peter?
you mean I corrupted her baby? Yeah,
Oh,
parent.
my
That he was
God.
supposed to become Cardinal McCormick, but
Oh my
And to give everyone to paint a picture, this woman, this scary woman, is all of 4'10".
yeah. But she was good. I mean, thank God for her, because that's
Yeah.
how I was able to,
Yeah.
when we worked at the store, she or my grandmother would watch my daughter.
Yeah.
And she came to live with us when we moved out here.
Yeah.
And she was
okay, so I've met her. Yeah.
Oh
all right.
yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
she
yeah.
took
Oh yeah,
would-
she is tiny.
yeah. But I wanted to get out on my own. I had never
Yeah.
lived on my own. I went from my grandmother's house to my mother-in-law's house. So
Yeah.
after a year, I said, I want to move, but let's either get an apartment or, well, we didn't even think about buying a house. I wanted to rent an apartment. So he took us around to a couple of apartments, this realtor.
Yeah.
And then, he said, it's so expensive to rent,
Yeah.
we thought,
Yeah.
and he says, if for the same amount of money, if not less,
Yeah.
you could buy a house, and you pay it off over 25 years. So we went to see some houses and we saw this one, and I liked it. It needed a lot of work. This house had been rented for 45 years, so it had nothing done to it. And the stove, the oven in the kitchen didn't have degrees. It had on off for the oven. Yeah.
Baby.
And it had a ringer roller washer in the basement.
Oh.
And it was just
God.
nothing done
So
for
this
45.
thing was ancient then.
So my husband says, we're going to bid low.
Matt, let me pull up a Google Maps real quick.
Here, yeah, I'll send you I'll let you do the gimmick here. Go ahead. So, okay, so while you're pulling it up, I'll ask some stuff. So you buy a fixer-upper. Okay, is this
Yeah,
it?
there it is.
Yep.
Okay.
We did a lot of
green
work
one?
to that house.
The
Well,
green
we
guys
one?
paid people to do a lot of work to the house.
Yeah. That's a nice little gimmick. Can you zoom in?
Not
No, it doesn't.
quite.
Okay, but that's I'll tell you
It
what.
looks the same, Pete, from when we moved.
That's a nice little street you got there. There's a field
yeah.
there, and is that a park or a school or anything there?
This used to be John F. Kennedy Hospital. And now where my mom went to junior high, Fells turned into Fells High School. So this is now a high school. Yeah.
Oh, so you lived right next to the high school then?
Well,
It was
wasn't
at that
then.
point it was a hospital.
Oh, okay. Okay. When you guys were there. Okay. I see. So, all right. So you buy this house that hasn't had any work done on it
Mhm.
for 45 years, and you're there and you're doing your thing. so you move in and right away you're like, we got to upgrade at least, to get a working stove and
I kept that stove for a while. It worked. You just put a thermometer inside and it'll tell you how hot it is. And
okay.
cooked my first turkey in there.
Hey.
But my husband decided, the walls, they were plaster, and he said, I think we need to put new plaster up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what about that drywall stuff people talk about? Because that was pretty new back then.
Yeah.
No, we're going to do it the right way. And of course, this is Mr. Handy Not. So, so here we go. We just mixed up this plaster outside, and you had to put the chicken wire up, and then you had to put it all on. We don't know what we're doing. And my aunt brings her new husband or guy she was dating to see the house, and he does a lot of handiwork. And he said, oh, you're going to have to take that down. And it's like, well, what do you mean we got to take it down? He says, you got the top coat on the bottom and the bottom coat on the top. And you and you got to rip that all out. And so
man, this was pre-YouTube.
Yeah. Oh my
So we ended up having to rip it down, and I looked at him. He said, okay, we'll get drywall. And he got his brother-in-law to put the drywall up. And, and then after that, we ended up, my brother-in-law, Pete's, my husband's brother-in-law at the time, helped panel the house. So this paneling covered up all kinds of defects in the wall.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, for a housewarming, bought us rugs.
Nice.
And
so it's wood floors.
It had hardwood floors. Yeah,
that's nice. That's a nice touch.
Wall to wall.
Matt, this was back then. People didn't like hardwood, so you wanted to cover it up with some nice fresh carpet.
Yeah.
So
my mom will point this out to say, because we have hardwood floors in my home, but when I go back to my parents' house on their family room floor, I like to lay out on the carpet because it's nice and comfortable, and I can stretch my big back out.
I love, nice carpet makes a difference. For sure.
Yeah, it took us a number of years, but over the years we redid that house top to bottom.
Nice.
We didn't do it. We hired. No, though my husband did put the paneling and drop ceiling up.
All right, there you go.
When we had our first child, which was still there when we left.
There you go.
But we paid other people to, we had friends and fireman friends who one did the kitchen and one redid the whole house and put in new windows. And, over the years, we were there for 19 years.
So you guys buy the deli, and you guys are just putting in a ton of work at the deli from, we'll say 80 to 85. And you guys are living there while you buy a house and repair it.
No, we were living in the house when we bought it.
Okay. So, okay. So you had 78, you had the kid. You lived till 79. You're living at your mother-in-law's, and then
we lived with my mother. We got married in 76, and we moved down in 77 when we bought the house.
Oh, okay. Then you had your first kid in 78. Okay. Yeah. 78, and then 80 you buy the deli. 85 you have your second kid, and then
I retired.
You retired from the deli. And then from 85 until 93, 92.
90. I kept having babies.
Yeah. You had 5 between 85 and 93, right?
Yeah, 80. I had, yes, I did. Yeah.
When I had we could tell when my mother was pregnant when she wouldn't wear her seatbelt. And all of a sudden I noticed my mom wouldn't have her seatbelt. I'm like, Mom, are you pregnant again?
It didn't fit,
I mean, those seatbelts back then, forget it. They were a death trap. But I remember one of Pete's first cars was a Nova, and the seatbelts were clipped to the ceiling. Oh man, that was fun. Love that car. So okay. So so from 85 to, let's say, 91, 92, you were from 85 to 91, you're kind of, doing the baby thing and all that. You would have your last kid in 93, but from 91 to 92, that's when you started in nursing school. Is that right?
Yeah, I went to the local community college to start taking prerequisites that you need, like your English, your sciences and stuff like that. And because I found having that many kids is expensive. And
Ain't cheap.
And when you're self-employed, you got to pay for your own health insurance. And back then, the insurance only covered hospitalizations. It didn't cover doctor visits. It did not cover immunizations. It did not cover, you had to pay all that out of pocket, all prescriptions, dental, eye, the whole
bit.
It
was insurance in the true sense of the word. In case shit happened.
Oh my God.
So I decided that maybe it's time, for me, what could I do? What kind of job could I do that wouldn't really interfere with my kids a whole lot? So it was either teaching or nursing, because then nurses, started working 3 12-hour shifts a week and it's full time, or, work just weekends, 2 12-hour shifts on the weekends, and you got pay and benefits for full time. So I ended up working towards nursing school. So I started nursing school in 92 with.
And Mom, how old are you at this point?
I think I was third. I started oh gosh, how old was I? I started.
You can't be more than 26 because you're only 25 now.
I think I was about your age, Pete. I think I was about your age when I started towards it, and actually started the nursing program. It was 2 nights a week and every other weekend. It was an RN program at Episcopal Hospital. And it would take 3 years. So that didn't take a lot from my kids. But, I quit all my bowling leagues. I stopped watching TV, and this is how.
Parent. Matt, this was tough for us as kids because when my mom was in the bowling league, that we loved it because they had this playroom and you had like all the blocks, all the toys. So I'm like, get out of here, leave me alone. I'm gonna go play bowl with my kids. I'm like, we get to play with all the toys and fountain soda.
That was the best. I mean, I could, but like there's sacrifices you have to make for your family, and you were willing to do that. And that's, without a question.
That's how you find time. I didn't realize how much bowling and TV I was involved
and Mom,
with. So.
Do you remember how you got us to buy into it as kids? Like, because when you went to nursing school, we were not happy about it.
Really?
We were, because I mean, like, Mom was like, the bully beat you up. Mom would grab his bike and throw it over the chain link spike fence.
Well, he deserved that.
There was a bully in my neighborhood who beat me up, and my mom took his bike and threw it over a barbed wire fence.
Well, he would do it all the time, and I'd say, Peter, just beat him back. No, I can't do that. And I would go to the kid's mom, and I would say, well, she did. His father was teaching him to beat up kids because he might be.
His brother might be a friend, a listener of the show, so we don't want to get into it too much.
But he would beat up, and the mom would not do anything. So one day, they started to get along. And one day,
we did become friends.
He did. He threw Peter's new football over into this lot, this high fence. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And he just shrugged, and I said, "Would you go get that for him?" And because he was angry with another kid and he thought it was that kid's football.
Oh, God.
So, and he refused. I said, "Oh, I've had it. This is years of this." So I picked up his bike and I threw it over the fence. And he never bothered you after that. So I think it worked.
Yeah,
it
good.
Did work,
Yeah, good. That's what should happen, piece of shit.
I mean, it's terrible, but as a parent, when you see someone
messes with your kid,
even though they're a kid, you have to hold back. But so it's better that I threw the bike than him.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why as kids we were a little upset because, we had Graham to watch out, which is great. But at the same time, like Graham's not throwing bikes over fences. Like we're not getting that all out Al Capone protection that we were.
Probably not my proudest moment, but
my God.
I got the point across.
Yeah.
I remember my mom goes, "You know why I'm doing this? Like, you know how you guys like to get water ice and ice cream from the ice cream trucks?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, that's disposable income, and we don't have much of that right now. But if I become a nurse, then we'll have more disposable income, and then you guys can get water ice." And I'm like, with a pretzel? And she goes, with a pretzel. And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do it. Go to school, Mom.
I love how you're just real, like being real. Look, you like water ice and pretzels and ice cream and all that fun stuff and footballs. Yeah. Well, you're not going to have that if Mommy doesn't go to nursing school. Like,
well, hey, when you have that many kids and 2 adults in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath row home, and
baby,
4 of them are girls, there is just no way. We needed a bigger house.
So all of my water ice money went into the new house.
Hey, God bless you. Jesus.
But you would get it once in a while.
No, I'm just it's just funny like how you were able to
once in a while.
Because I went from like, no, you can't go to school to like, oh yeah, she's got to finish fast. Like
Mom,
water ice season only lasts 3 months a year. We're already past one of them.
Yeah. Dude, I'll tell you what, I feel like the ice cream truck in my neighborhood is year round. I hear that freaking thing. But okay, so let's keep this going. You did nursing school, and when you went in, you knew like pediatrics or teaching, right?
It was pediatrics or labor and delivery.
Okay,
as a nurse.
All right. So you went in, you get your nursing school, you finish nursing school, and then your specialty was pediatrics when you left. And then you were on the medical surgery floor.
A pediatric,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you were doing stuff with like disease then, is that right? Like at the med surgery area, or what?
Yeah, you know, kids surgery, when it says med surg, so you have, kids that get surgery, and after they're recovered from the anesthesia, then they would bring them to our floor and we would take care of them. Pain management, wound care, and things like that.
That's tough.
And then medical is, a kid comes in maybe vomiting and diarrhea, is dehydrated, and they would admit them, and you would take care of them, rehydrate them till they can go home. Back then, big thing was AIDS. And so we would get I was on the infant toddler floor, which I loved. That was my favorite, infant toddler. So we would have a lot of kids, with AIDS, little ones, toddlers, and of course a lot of them did die. They didn't have the cocktails that they have now, but those little babies, and they would come in just so sick, and then they would rebound and you could send them home. But a lot of them,
that's so tough.
Didn't make it. But
that's
for them,
tough.
It was tough back then, but they've really done great research. And now you have these cocktails. Now they give these cocktails to moms that are pregnant that have HIV. And those babies are born HIV free.
That's fascinating.
It is crazy how
it
much
is amazing.
In so long,
amazing. And
a death sentence is just like, here you go, shot, and here's your baby now for the rest of your life.
If you think back to Magic Johnson,
they
really thought that was going to be a death sentence. Look at him. Look at him. He's doing great because he's taken this cocktail. And, so they've come a long way, but we had a lot of little ones like that. And a little ones with CF, cystic fibrosis, and I didn't have sickle cell is a big one, and those poor little guys are in pain. That is a painful disease, and and so many of them tend to get addicted to like morphine and stuff back then because it was the only way to control the pain. So now it's trying to prevent them from going into crisis. So, and it's changed a lot over the years. I mean, that was like, 25, 26 years ago. But
well, I mean, that does put in perspective on some like the pain medications, like, like there's chronic pain, and back then there was like chronic diseases. Like, how do you, like, people only have so much to live. You want them to be comfortable. You don't want them to be suffering their entire life.
With cancer and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's tough. That's a tough gig. I'll tell you this. The one thing I've noticed with like infant-sized toddlers, when it comes to like being sick or medical or something like that, is giving them medicine is a nightmare. And you were doing that every day.
Yeah.
Did you?
It's a lot easier if it was through the IV, but yes, when you have to do orally. And you know what? Because I remember we would have kids come in, and they were there because they had an ear infection. the kid wouldn't take the medicine or kept throwing it up. And at some point they need that antibiotic.
Yep.
So, and the mother says, well, he just won't take it. Well, he needs to take it. You just, I'm sorry, shove it down his throat.
Yeah.
You know, I used to wrestle.
Put it in there. Yeah, I think my mom would put it into her mouth and then hold her nose closed and be like, you're going to breathe sooner or later.
Yeah. My big thing now is doing it so they tilt their head back. So it's just, they have no choice.
You know, some kids like the taste of it and some don't, but, you have to, you're doing what's best for the child. If they need that medicine, it's got to get in them.
Yeah. You're
or otherwise they're going to end up in a hospital.
That's something.
Getting a needle.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you this. So in my mind, I had thought, like, when we were talking about how you're dealing with sick kids, right? And like seeing kids sick and things like that, that to me, it's heart-wrenching, like seeing that. And like, my first thought was like, how can someone see this all day? Like, what type of person is this? And to me, thinking about it, that's the person that loves kids the most, who is there willing to suffer with them to make them feel a little better and help them, because your mind always is if it's best, what's best for the kid, right? That's at the end of the day, if the kid needs surgery, if the kid needs surgery and he needs help, and it's what's best for the kid, then that's what you're doing. And that's to be commended, because I'll tell you what, that's a job not a lot of people want to do. And that's a tough job. And you
got to help the parents to get through it. You know, it's not an easy thing to watch your kid, you know, getting stuck with IVs and stuff like that.
And it's a weird education process, right? Because like you have to teach the parents, like, this has to be done, and then teaching them how to do it. And you know,
I mean, look at the little kids. You get little kids that are diagnosed very young as a diabetic. So there's a lot of teaching that goes into that, you know, because you're first of all, kids don't like needles. Now you're being taught as a parent to give this child a needle, to stick this child's fingers to check their glucose and what they should eat and what signs and symptoms of high, you know, blood sugar or low blood sugar. And it's not something, I mean, first of all, you're stressed out as a parent. Oh my God, how can this happen to my kid? And then you have to try to help them learn about it. So at least when they go home, and then you set them up with services and all for that. So.
And Matt, now I'm going to brag about my mom a little bit here. Because Mom, what was the award you won in nursing?
All right.
Oh, God.
In nursing school.
I got two when I graduated.
Oh,
one was
two.
Yes. One was that academic excellence, which I did share with another girl. We both had
you were better though. We
top
know
in the class.
Better. You were better.
And then the other one was, and I still don't know how I got that one, but empathetic and empathy in nursing. It was the Brendan A. Anderson Award for empathy in nursing. So
that means she could relate with
Yeah.
Well, that has to be part of it, right? Like,
and so Matt, that I guess that's what I was going to go. Like, that's what nursing really, a lot of it is about. Is like, you know, like the doctors only have so much time to spend with the patients. They only have so much patience to spend with their patients, and so like, you know, it is the nurses teaching the parents how to deal with it, how to you know, give medicine, all this kind of stuff. And I remember like when my mom was a nurse, like, you know, she would come home with, you know, bracelets from her patients and necklaces and little cards.
My God.
And that's, you know, like, you know, helping the kids get through the diseases. You know, it is a big thing. It's not just the physical side of them you're helping out with. It's the emotional side. You know, it's the psychological side of it.
Yeah. I'll tell you this.
Like, you don't have to be scared while you're here, basically. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're giving peace of mind. No, that absolutely. You're the nurses are the the heartbeat of every hospital and every medical facility you go to. They are the heavy lifters. They do the tough jobs. They do the shit work, and they do the things people are too scared or don't have the gumption to do. And that's, you know, I mean, I can't speak highly enough about nurses, every single one of them. And they've all been, I mean, everyone I've ever dealt with, they're the real heroes when you're going to these places. Absolutely. You know, and that's, you know, and you're part of, like, I feel like it's, you know, I don't want to say sisterhood, but you're part of like a fraternity of like your coworkers. Like, I feel like it's like when you see another nurse and you guys share your war stories and stuff like that, like there's real, like you've lived, like seen real stuff, you know, like that's life and death has been in your hands and all that and things like that. And, you know, to share those moments with other nurses and to be part of that fraternity and part of that group, it's, you know, I don't think you guys get as much credit as you deserve, because that's a real honor to do that, because you really are like you're kind of like the moms for society at sometimes. You know what I mean?
Well, we're the ones that are there. That we are the eyes and ears for the doctors.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And you work together as a team. And when you're with a good team, you always have backup. You know what I mean? Yep. So I was very fortunate to have worked with a great bunch of physicians and nurses. I couldn't say enough about them. And it, like I do peds. Now people say, oh, how could you do peds? Well, somebody's got to do it. And I love kids. So I can't do geriatrics. Yeah. I find that the most depressing thing. To me, those people are amazing. The nurses who take care of geriatric patients, high five to you, because I couldn't do that.
I mean, all of you guys are amazing to me. No matter what department you're in, you guys are all incredible, the stuff you do. But so I do want to keep it going. So you were at you did St. Chris, you did Temple Children's, you did Jefferson Pediatric Rehab and CHOP, right?
And CHOP, yeah. And I did a per diem at Abington, but yeah.
And so we're going to get into that, but like you worked at all these places, but you didn't do just one thing. So also, I do want to say this, and when we did the pre-show, Pete, I was such a freaking idiot because your mom was like, yeah, I did school nursing. And I was like, oh, you taught at a nursing school. Like, that's what I thought in my mind. But no, it's school nursing. She was a school nurse, right? Yep. And I was like, oh, my God. And that's like very unique. So can you we'll just go over for a little bit and then we'll get back into the heavy lifting. Yeah. But what is your thoughts on school nursing and how was your experience and what did you think and everything like that? How'd it go?
Well, I wanted a job where I'd have the same hours as my kids. Now, and I didn't want to work nights anymore. So I thought, well, let me try school nursing, to get a certificate. You have to go back to school. You got to get some more classes and masters and see, but I could be a substitute school nurse to see how I liked it, before I put that money out. And so I was working full-time 312s at the hospital. And so on my days off, I, was this, substitute school nurse. It didn't last real long because God bless those women, because I could not do it. But
just so everyone remembers, my mother was a nurse at Temple Children's Hospital, St. Christopher's Hospital, and CHOP. The three most demanding hospitals in the tri-state area.
Jefferson's Pediatric
some rugrats.
But, school nursing, because it's not just helping them when they're throwing up and calling their parents to take them. In today's world, you have a lot of special needs kids with, all kinds of health problems. They're on all kinds of medicine. You have to check their blood pressures and all this stuff. And so there's a lot for them to do. Not only do they have to look after the children, they're also your occupational health nurse for the teachers. And if there's anything, like when I'm a nurse on the floor, and something happens, all I have to do is call a code. And in 30 seconds at the most, I have 10, 20 people surrounding me helping. Yeah. You're a school nurse, it's 911. You are the only one there. So it is you. So my hat's off to them. I couldn't do it. After doing it for a couple of months, I decided I couldn't be bothered with all the little hypochondriac children. And
did you know any of them personally?
Well, it's funny. I was doing my orientation at the local elementary school where my kids went, and I didn't tell them I was going there. I could just see them trying to come down and visit me. So the nurse says to me as she's orienting me, you're going to have, at 10 o'clock, it gets a little busy. We get a group of kids down. I said, okay. So at 10 o'clock, sure enough, a bunch of kids, it must have been about 20 kids that came into the nurse's office. Now, later, I learned a lot of these kids have scheduled medication. So that's probably why a lot of them were there. But I turned around and there's my daughter. And I said to her, you're not sick. Get back to class. You're
40 years old. You're a PhD candidate. There's no reason for you to be down here. No.
Different daughter. And the nurse says, oh, how did you do that? I'm like, oh.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. But I have some funny stories about it, but let's just say I decided this was not for me.
Yeah.
Give me the sick kids, and I didn't bother going to school for that. I just,
Yeah. That's a
but it was
tough.
an experience, you
Yeah.
never know until you
You
try
never
it.
know. Yeah, you're
But
absolutely
it,
right. You
it
never
just goes
know.
to show, like each job has their they each have their hard points and their high points and their low points. Like each job's different.
Yeah.
And nursing, there's so many opportunities. It's not just patient care. There
Yeah.
is, so you can work for insurance, you can work for the government, you can work in case management, you can work
Yeah.
for the finance, you can work. There's just so much that you can
It's a huge
do.
field.
Yeah. So that's actually what I wanted to get into next. So speaking of your 25 years of nursing, you did it all. Like there's front of the house and back of the house, and you were doing it all. So I do want to ask, like, because about us, right? The show, we're giving shape to the world around us, and like everyone here has gone to the hospital, right? I mean, most people here have gone to the hospital. When you go to the hospital, you see a nurse, you see a doctor, you're out. You don't realize there's like 5 other people or something that are dealing with you behind the scenes, and you might see 1 or 2 of them real quick. But what is like, and you just mentioned it. So what is like case management and discharge planning and all those different aspects of like, the financial and the insurance and all those things? You did all of that. So can you kind of break down, like, we'll start with, what is case management? So what is that person? So if I'm going to the hospital, what is the case management person doing for me?
So with the case discharge planning begins on admission. So if somebody gets admitted to the hospital, or they're in the ER and they're going to be sent home and they need supplies, case management comes in, looks at what's going on, make sure that we are not overutilizing services, like repeat. Like the patient maybe already had a CAT scan. Why are we doing another? Is there a medical necessity for that?
Yeah.
What do they need for home? And you start planning that. So when they are ready to go home, you have the nursing in place, you have the supplies in place, whatever they would need. Make sure they have their medication, make sure they have their follow-up appointments, so that when they go home, you're setting them up to succeed, so they're not going to have to come back to the hospital. You can also do that for the insurance company, where they'll go out and do further teaching and make sure you have all your appointments for people that maybe are not good at coordinating. The elderly have multiple specialists, they have multiple health problems, so they come into play where they're trying to help coordinate, keep you out of the hospital.
Wow.
And we also, from a case management, there's what they call utilization review. You're calling in what's going on medically with the patient, with the insurance company, to make sure try to get the hospital paid. They'll either approve it or they'll deny it. Another part of that was when I was the appeals coordinator. So if the hospital got denied for not meeting medical necessity, I would appeal that to the insurance company, write letters and and appeal that. And, I had a pretty good overturn rate, and I worked with a great medical director. So we were a good team together to get this overturned.
So real quick.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and so like this is something like I think people don't realize with the medical field is like I don't want to say it's arbitrary, but like medical billing is like its own animal, and like getting the insurance company to pay up for procedures is not that easy. So like some of us go in there and our bills are just taken care of, and a lot of us, like, we end up with these bills. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? And this is a job where like this is somebody that's fighting for you on your behalf to make sure, like, hey, look, you've paid for this insurance. You're entitled to this healthcare, and we're going to make sure that you get it. So it is an important job behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know that it even exists.
Oh yeah, and people should be thanking their lucky stars that they have someone that, like Mrs. McCormick, that is fighting for them, because I guarantee
cares about their job.
And like, you've saved people thousands and thousands of dollars that they would have to pay for a medical procedure that should have been covered by insurance, but one little miss up here and now you're out.
If you don't have the right diagnosis with that surgery procedure, they're not going to pay for it. And a lot of, so it's not their fault. It's just sometimes the wrong click on the computer. stuff like that. And then
but I guess what I'm saying is it takes somebody caring enough that cares enough to know to find out that that's the wrong code. Because a lot of people will just be like, oh, the code is the code.
Yeah,
like,
they don't care. Money out of their pockets, not my money.
Happy hour starts at 6.
Yeah,
get out of here.
Move it forward. But you were there fighting for the people.
For the people and for the hospital, because really, people think hospitals make a lot of money, and they actually provide a lot more free care than people realize.
Oh yeah.
Because you're doing what's right for the patient. And then you worry about it on the back end, which is where we came in to fight for it and to advocate. And it was just very, I love case management. I thought
that's fascinating.
Yeah, I really liked it. I really felt like I was helping the families and getting what they needed at home. And but yeah, I did on the finance side, where I would now prevent the insurance companies from taking money back from the hospital after they paid us. Good. If the big thing in nursing is if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. So if you have to find documentation to justify the services you're billing for and the supplies. That is very important. So if you can't find that documentation to back that up, then you got to give money back to the insurance company. You can't bill the patient for that, so that's lost money.
So the paper trail is massive. Oh,
so you know how you get taxed you get audited by the IRS for your taxes? The insurance companies will audit the hospitals or Medicare, and they'll be like, hey, have you actually provided these services? Can you document that you provided these services?
Yeah, I guess they have to, because people will steal. That's a shame, but it's true. So that's fascinating. So I kind of want to give a little shape to it. So someone checks in. As soon as they check in, there's someone that's okay, we're on this case. So while they're dealing with the triage and the nurses and all that stuff, there's someone behind the scenes like, okay, this person is coming in for this. So they will need, so hypothetically, they might need this, this, and this. So we'll find out what they need. Okay, so they went with this, and this is going to be covered under this, and then this is going to go under this. So let's make sure once they get this, then we're going to start them leaving. So let's make sure that we have this, this, and this set up, and the insurance covers this and all of that. And that's that's the case management and the discharge planning and all that stuff. That's all of that coming into play. People will never see that, and they don't know it because all they're doing is signing a paper.
But they do need us. I mean, because we got to verify where they live, who's going to help take care of them. Because, say somebody comes in, an elderly person who has a fractured hip, and now, she's had their surgery, and, is she able to go home? Who does she have at home to take care of her? How many steps are there to go up there? Does she need an ambulance, or does she need to go to rehab because she doesn't have support at home? So you're and then you're dealing with the insurance company to get all this approved. So it's a different part of helping people.
And Mom, I think that's some important for people to understand, because I think some people get to the hospitals and they're like, oh, why am I doing all this paperwork? Why am I doing all this paperwork? And it's like, hey, we're doing this to make sure you're getting the right care at the right time for the right price. And so, don't write a wall. You're like, hey, look, this person's here to make sure that you're not paying more than you need to pay, and making sure that you get the care that you need to have.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the big things with the Affordable Care Act is, and I think I don't know if they extended the date, but to start posting with hospital charges, so that you can,
it's kind of like you get a receipt.
You could say maybe get an MRI cheaper at the hospital down the street than the other one going the other way. I mean, it used to be you didn't know what
who would know? It's not like they have a drive-through menu like, oh, MRI, $2.99, baby. Super
so now here's the caveat. Yes, it's great to post because you have to have it on the internet, and then what they charge for a lot of the common stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you have a certain insurance, you don't always get to go where you want to go.
True.
Yep.
You have to go if it's like
Where
an
your
HMO
insurance-
where you are capitated to.
In network.
So in
The dreaded
network.
in network.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to it. It's not
Complicated
it's a-
system.
no.
That's right. I guess that's the whole point. Is it's a very complicated system, and that's
It
why we
is.
need good case managers.
Yes.
To kind of like let everyone know, like, hey, this is what we're doing for you,
Yeah.
and why
Sorry,
we're doing
you can't go there if you want, because you're
Yeah.
going to have to pay out of network, and some insurances don't allow out of network, so that's all out of your pocket, and you
Yep.
want to prevent that as much as
Yep.
possible. Yeah.
There's real honor in every aspect of nursing. So like what you're doing about the case management, the discharge planning, the appeal coordinator, all of that stuff, like people don't realize, like, because people think like, okay, I go in, I talk to this person, and like they wouldn't even know you're doing case management. They just think you're another nurse, right? And they don't know. They think like, okay, this person's
Well,
probably
actually,
gonna go.
I say hi. I'm Bonnie McCormick. I'm the case manager.
But like but they won't associate that with anything. They'll just think like, okay, you're another nurse I have to talk to. You're just part of the whatever.
Yeah, I guess the thing is we're scared that they'll drown it out. Like, have you like we're calling in regards to your warranty? You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah. But also there's a lot of honor in it, because if you don't do your job, like if you're just like, okay, they check this, and this, screw them, whatever. And what, you know what I mean? Like just did it like that, and just did like, got what you need to get done, and didn't go the extra, and didn't do like the extra things and try and help people, then these people are out of luck and out of money, and they're getting shortchanged. Like that could happen, right? Like if you didn't.
I guess if you had nurses that weren't, because if there's not a case manager, and I've done it when I was a nurse on the floor, sometimes you have to take the lead.
Yeah.
I think that's what Matt's saying, is that the like you caring and people in your position caring is the difference between somebody having a huge bill or not. Because maybe somebody that doesn't care.
There are people who go home, they're sent home from the hospital, and they don't have what they need.
Yep,
They don't have the equipment. And how that gets lost, I don't know, because that should never happen, but it does. Yeah.
But I think that's what we're saying, is like there are some, like basically, like I'm sure there's somebody that did a job worse than you, where you both were considered, hey, we both did our jobs today. But the difference is like you went a little extra, and someone didn't get a $5,000 bill or a $100,000 bill, and somebody else did. And that's what it is. It's like, it's not just, oh, I did enough job not to get fired. I did a good enough job to help somebody not be bankrupt, not lose a kid, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you weren't lazy. Like you weren't in there thinking like, oh, I'm tired, I'm not going to do this today because it was, Brenda's birthday and you had cake. Like that shit would never cross your mind, because you're there to do what's best for the patient and what's best for this person who's sick, And
and I think besides money, it's not really about money. It's more about
doing what's right,
keeping them out of the hospital, coming back to the hospital, and making sure that they have the support that they need at home.
Your mother is sick, so you know what it's like if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, you've been in nursing, you did 25 years. You did every aspect from case management to medical to appeal coordinator to finance and everything like that. So I want to touch on this a little bit. So finance was kind of the last thing when you were doing before you retired in February of 2021. So what kind of was your final role when you were? Oh, so compliance wasn't the last thing.
Compliance, but that's not finance.
Oh, shows how fucking much I know. So okay, so then
the finance department was, coding, making sure that our departments have charges with the correct codes and billing codes. That's kind of what, looking at departments and are they above budget, below budget, why? Looking at trends. And also when an insurance company would audit us to defend what we have. Compliance is doing the right thing. Are we billing correctly? Are we billing compliantly? Are we following the national guidelines for Medicare, Medicaid, things like that, and making sure that our documentation supports what we're billing.
Okay.
You know, I have nothing to do with when I was in compliance, which is where I retired from.
Yeah.
It was more about the right thing.
Yeah, and Mom, I think I may have confused Matt a little bit because I have been a tax accountant for the past so many years, and compliance and accounting kind of get intermingled because like the finance
we
part
have
of it is like
internal audit, which is looking at the books, but we do it is from the medical and what we're billing.
I think that's what I'm going to say is like compliance goes beyond just accounting compliance. There is legal compliance. There is my standards of ethics compliance, right? 'Cause we have the Hippocratic Oath in healthcare. Like there's all kind of, hey, am I holding up to the standards by every oath I've ever taken? So
you're not just running the numbers, you're running everything in compliance. Like you have to, hey, there's a lot of boxes you got to check and we got to make sure you're compliant with all
and
of
we
them.
don't run the numbers. What we do is to make sure you're doing it correctly.
So you're really like you're really like
so that we don't get dinged by the federal government or insurance company where you hear like you'll hear about University of Penn and Jefferson and different hospitals having to they got fined millions of dollars because they weren't doing things.
They didn't document properly.
Hey, that's why CHOP's #1 in the world. There's a reason, and it's because of things like that. Yeah. Damn. All right. So that's awesome. So I did want to talk about this as well. So, and we'll touch on it briefly. So I guess this was 2009 maybe to 2011, kind of around that time. I want to talk about going to Dr. Drill's boot camp. And I
Dr. Drill.
I want to bring this up because I'll tell you what, Mr. McCormick, you have 6 kids. You were nursing for 25 years, and you're just the nicest lady. You and your husband had a family-run business. You came up. You didn't, childhood wasn't the easiest and all that stuff, but you came up and you really just like are a great success story. But another thing you did that was incredible is that you took it upon yourself at a time in your life where you had 6 kids that still lived at home and you were working full time and you're doing triage work or you're doing per diem work and things like that. But you decided to start attending Dr. Drill's boot camp, which was a exercise boot camp that started at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning at the local YMCA. And you did it year round and you just took this over and it became like, you made this like the thing to do. You made it like must-see TV. You had millions of people, like not millions, but you had tons of people. Not millions, but you had tons of people.
Millions, but
But you had a bunch of people get involved and change your life, and you changed your life as well. And you had a dramatic weight loss, and you were featured in newspapers and internet articles and magazines and things like that. And kind of tell us, what was Dr. Drill's boot camp? What was that experience like? And how did you like that? And what did you think about it?
Well, I saw it at the Y. It was a group of people and it was like a regimented thing. It was a guy that is a Marine, he was a Marine, so drill sergeant. So I thought, I struggle. I've always struggled with my weight. Same. So I wanted to kick up my exercising because I wasn't just, So I thought, well, let me try that. That looks kind of fun, Oh gosh, I joined, and I almost quit the first day. First of all, you got to make sure you're hydrated. I apparently had wine the day before.
Big mistake.
One last night before we go in.
You don't ever do that. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is so hard. And the guy next to me is throwing up in his canteen thing. And I'm like, and I was like, oh, I can't, I'm afraid to ask for my money back, because you had to stand at attention. If you even talked or moved out of line, you had to do push-ups or, it was like you were in the military. It really was. And so, one of the girls, I said, oh, I don't know if I could do this. I feel so awful. And she says, you have to be well hydrated. I said, oh, I had wine last night, so I'm not well hydrated. She says, if you're well hydrated, she says, you'll be fine. I said, okay. So I thought, well, I'll give it another shot, another day, because we did it 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And, we had to be there. If you were on time, you're late was the,
It's the
at
military moniker.
05:30. So,
Yeah.
so I got there and I didn't drink wine. I drank a lot of water, ate and all that, and then came in the next morning and I was able to get through it. And I thought, I could do this for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to ever see him again or any of these people.
And you got your money's worth.
And I did it for 3 years. I just absolutely loved it.
It took over.
Oh my gosh. I did lose a lot of weight. And unfortunately, after I stopped, I also gained it back.
Oh, stop. I don't want to hear it. You look great.
But it was, and until this day, they are the greatest bunch of people.
Yeah.
I have friends that I still have as friends all these years. He just did a reunion in White's Road. And and I didn't do exercises, but I watched, and it is just amazing, inspirational. Him and the people that work with him and the people you meet through this, you meet a lot of wonderful people and great contacts. It really was it. I loved it. And I felt so good because, when you're doing that intense exercise, you get these endorphins. Let me tell you, that makes you feel great. I even learned how to run. I mean, I could run in school, but when I was, I'm fat and, 55 years old and they help you. Everybody helps each other.
Yeah.
No one's there to show off or anything. Everybody's there to lend a hand. And I had guys like I couldn't run. So they say, just shuffle a few feet, shuffle. And then they would walk with you. Then you'd shuffle. They just really kind of got you moving to the point that I was able to run Broad Street.
Yeah.
And I was able to run a half marathon.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for some of my friends as part of this group, I don't know if I would have gotten through that, but they just cheer you on and they just run with you and you encourage each other. And it was the best experience I had.
I want everyone to know listening. You were we'll just say you were in your late 30s at the time.
Yeah.
But you at your age and your body transformation and everything, you were able to run the Broad Street Run, which is 10 miles for everybody listening, 10 freaking miles. And then you were able to run a half marathon, which is 13 miles.
Yeah, right? Those last 3 miles are a bitch, but
hey, but
wait, to give people perspective, right? When I was in the prime of my life, a Division I wrestler at Drexel University, I ran 13 miles one time. The last mile, my nose bled for the entire time. So much so that when I got back, our coach goes, "Matty, did you get jumped?" I go, "No, coach. This is what happens when I run 10 miles. I start bleeding." And my mother ran 10 miles like it was nothing. She made me her bitch.
Yeah. She made everybody her bitch. That was incredible stuff. And that's an amazing feat. And you should be very proud of that. And we're proud that you were able to do that. And it was awesome to be there, to be along for the ride for that journey, because you weren't alone on that journey. You were with, like you said, you made friends and fellow supporters.
To this day, they are the greatest group of people. They really are. And he actually teaches anatomy and physiology at the local university. If you need them, Pete.
Not only that, Mom, but he reached out to me when he found out that I was going into nursing, like you, and offered to help me with anatomy and physiology in case I needed it. I started last week and in the middle of right now, so I might be hitting him up for it.
That's great.
Take him up on it because he's serious, or you have your father and I. But since he's teaching and he's up to date on everything.
Yeah. Hey, take it while you can, right?
Hey, I'll always go with the doctor.
So we're coming to the top of the time. I do want to say this. So you're retired now. You retired in February 2021. You enjoy now. You love being with your 3 grandkids. They're right now the shining light of your life. You love seeing them. You love going on cruises with your husband of 45 years that you've been married to. God bless you. You love going to the beach. You enjoy doing games like Scrabble and card games and things like that. I feel like that's a city thing. Like our family played cards like you wouldn't believe, and board games and things like that. But we played cards like sons of bitches at our house. I don't know, but so I do. I'm happy for you and everything like that. What do you have planned for your retirement? Anything coming up?
Well, considering I retired during a pandemic and I had like 9 cruises canceled over the past year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Our first cruise is coming up in September.
All right.
Seattle to Alaska.
Oh,
2 weeks if they don't shut us down.
Yeah.
So let's just all keep our fingers crossed.
And just to let the people know the geniuses that my parents are, they kept booking cruises throughout this thing because they kept giving them discounts. So like, we canceled the cruise. They wanted your money back. Like, well, if you don't give your money back, we'll give you 130% on the next one. And they were like, we'll just keep re-upping. We'll double down, baby. We'll double down.
So now I went from an inside cabin to a balcony. So
all right. So you're kind of living the suite here. So nice. So I know this former guest of the show, friend of the show, Mr. Carl Bowers, him and his wife did the trip to Alaska, and he was saying, and he was over the moon about it, saying it was beautiful, breathtaking, gorgeous, the air, everything. He loved it. He did like a train kind of cruise kind of thing. But he thought it was he loved the hell out of it. He says great. So I'm excited. That sounds like I would love, like, Alaska to me seems fascinating, and just going up there, seeing everything. So I just hope you guys have the best time.
Oh, thank you. Just keep your fingers crossed that we go.
Yeah. Oh,
definitely.
You will. No, that shit's over. That ship is sailed.
You hope. I hope. So you never know. I never saw anything where you lock down everybody. It used to be when there was pandemic or diseases, you quarantined the sick.
Yeah.
And the healthy went on. But with something we know nothing about that was completely new, you just got to err on the side of caution.
Plus, things travel faster now.
That's the thing. Yeah, back in the day, if you basically, like, how many people that grew up in Philadelphia in the 50s left Philadelphia? You know what I mean? Compared to now, where you're just all over the place.
People are all over. They're going all over. I mean, just fly wherever, take a boat wherever. That's true. Very true.
So I'm really happy to hear that you're loving retirement, and and this is something I think that you should be very proud of, and everyone should be very proud of you for this. Like, the fact that you were able to go through nursing school while caring for 6 children, graduating the top of your class, and winning the Empathetic Nurse Award, and then saving lives for 25 years as a nurse, and working at the best children's hospital in the world for 14 years, doing all these different things and succeeding in all these different roles, and just you spent a career helping people, and that shouldn't be understated. And I can't thank you enough, and I think everyone should be very appreciative for what you and all the work every nurse does out there. So but
thank you, Matt.
Of course. Thank you. So we're coming to the top of time. So I do want to ask this, and I'm interested to hear your answer. So out of every job you had, every role, if you could pick one job, right, that you could have done that would have supported your family, would have given you like the income that you needed and lived comfortably and everything like that, out of all the jobs you had, what job would you pick to do as like your career, and for that you would have done your whole life?
You mean that besides what I've done?
Yeah.
Or no, anything you've done, anything that you had done. If you could,
pediatric nursing.
So
pediatric nursing. Absolutely love it.
That's,
and there's so many things I can do with it. So absolutely.
And you made it, like, as we talked about, 25 years, you're able to go through so many different roles and different specialties. And, that's something too, I think, I feel like we've been discovering that more on this show, where people now are looking like, I don't know, it used to be like, what can I get the most money out of, and what can I do this?
Right.
But I really think, like, the true success is finding a job that you love And that's what you should be searching for. You shouldn't be searching for like, oh, how am I going to make the most money and do whatever? Make some money. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying your first objective should be to work at something that you love doing. So you love what you do for the rest of your life. And that's kind of, you got to do that and work with kids, which you love and all that. And that's great. So anything you would like to say to the Working Perspectives podcast listeners before we take off, Mrs. McCormick?
Oh gosh. No, but just appreciate your nurses.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
your doctors.
Yes.
They are our heroes.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I wasn't on the front lines when COVID hit. I was working in an office and then from home. So but they are
the team.
They're the ones I admire.
Oh, absolutely. So
first responders and
absolutely. They are heroes. Yeah.
And get your vaccines so you don't end up with COVID.
Yes. Very good. Yes.
If you want to. I believe in personal freedom.
Very diplomatic as always, Mom.
It's funny you mentioned that because me and Pete recently did an interview with a molecular biologist, and when she was asked what one thing you would want to say to the people before we get out of here, and she said the same thing: get your goddamn vaccine.
And Mom, this was a Jets fan's fiance.
Yeah. Oh, so she knows the Jets fan's fiance?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Great girl. Really great.
They've met, yeah.
Great interview. So, all right. So we're coming to the top of time. Mrs. McCormick, this has just been, I knew this was going to be great. And honestly, this is so awesome to get your story and to get everything. And you were great you were great. And this has been an excellent interview, and I'm over the moon about it. Thank you so much. And Party Boy Pete, anything you want to say to the dozens and dozens before we take off?
Absolutely. So Matt, sometimes I talk about like the word that goes through my head during a podcast, and during this podcast, the word is community. I look back at my mother and everything we talked about, and like with her, it's all community. But from school, from being raised, from her friends to her jobs, till Dr. Drill, saying he'll help me go through AMP. It's always been a community effort.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is too, I just want to thank my mother, because not only did her and my father give me the ability to become an accountant, but looking back and knowing that she was able to go back to become a nurse in her 30s made me realize that I could do it too, and that's what I'm doing now. And a lot of people are like, how you think you can do this? I'm like, look, my mother did this with 6 kids at home.
Yeah.
You think I can't do this now with just one beagle? and just like a lot of intelligence, a lot of strength, a lot of faith, a lot of community has come from my parents. So thank you for being an amazing mother, and thank you for being on our podcast today.
Oh man,
thank you, my baby boy.
Yeah. And next time I'll tell the Jimmers story.
Oh my gosh.
Jimmers.
My Jimmers.
No,
yeah.
That's great. No, thank you. Also, thank you from me as well, Ms. McCormick, because you've been just the best. So, all right. Well, this has been another amazing episode of the Working Perspectives podcast. You can find us on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You can hang out with us on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast, and follow us on the Twitter and the TikTok at Working P Pod. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and think you have what it takes to jump on the pod and share your story, then email us at workperspectives@gmail.com. Other than that, thank you again, Mrs. McCormick, and stick around for the ad reads at the end of the show. See ya. Do you have a message or a story inside of you that you've been waiting to tell? Have you always dreamed of writing a book, but are intimidated by the complexities of the book publishing world? Perhaps you want to use a book to launch your public speaking or consulting career. If so, please reach out to Scott and Bell Publishing, located right here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Scott and Bell Publishing handle all genres and authors with all experience levels. Scott and Bell Publishing gives authors 100% creative freedom and a higher royalty split. They can be found at www.skotbell.com. That's www.s as in Sam, K as in Kite, O as in October, T as in Tom, B as in Boy, E as in Edward, L as in Larry, L as in Larry.com. That's Scott and Bell Publishing, where the authors go.